Hi guys, how's it going? In this video, try to create, we'll try to write down some of the rules for the validation for a form, so um, we can validate some of the input before it gets sent to the server. So yeah, let's fire up our homestead, and once the homestead is up and running, let's check our app by visiting the virtual address. Give it a second or two, and it's good. Let's see inside the app folder. Let me just go to that. Okay, so here we are. So sendMail brings us to that this form, which essentially we have to validate this form. So if I try to submit this, it tries to, as you can see, it tries to submit this route, and we haven't written down any code in this. So if I open the mail controller, so we try and we haven't really created a specific method here, so yeah, let me just what was the name of our view? It was I think it was send new email home, send new email. So we're actually firing sendmail.index. That's where we're sending it to. We're sending it to itself, which means basically index. So here, and there's nothing happening here. So obviously we'll have to fix this. So let's fix the by going in the routes. Let's try to make it a little bit better. So we can call it, let's just call it mail. The key will be called mail, and let's register another route, and we'll call it post, route post, and we're gonna post it to mail/send mail, and we'll register send mail method here. So we'll fire it's listening to this URL or the key, and it's going to be registered with this controller, the name sendMail. So let's create that method before it starts giving us errors. So in the mail controller, copy the whole thing, and let's just call it sendMail, and we'll provide it with a request, object in a request variable. So we're sending in the request that's coming from the form, and we'll pass it in the request variable, and let's just dump request all. How about that? So at least we know, we can see what's going on. Let's go back here and let's just dump everything, and it says not found. So send mail not found, because we're trying to we have to update our form. So let's go back here. How about we create a URL, and we call it mail/sendmail post, and when we go back here, refresh it. Okay, so it's not, of course the key has been changed, so we have to update that home view as well. Sorry about that. So we'll call it mail. We can call it mail dot index. That's correct, mail dot index. And if I go here, refresh it and send it, and that brings us to our form. That's perfect. Now let's try to submit this, and we get this whole array. This array has a couple of things. We've got our CSRF token, which is for our cross-site request forgery. It's set automatically by Laravel. We just have to include a input type hidden underscore token, which we did in the last video, and all the three fields are empty right now because we haven't entered any data. So our request is working, our route is working, our method is working, it's listening to the correct route, it's listening to the correct controller method, so everything seems to be working. And we can say here Eric, we can say here today is Wednesday or whatever, you know, hello world, and it'll punch the data in, the data that we're trying to send in through the form. So we know that our form is working, and we know that our token is also working. So everything seems to be working as expected. As we all know that Laravel provides us with this form request concept, which basically we can define our rules. So it offers a great level of abstraction, and we can actually abstract those rules, and it can do the work for us rather than validating separately. We can validate the input here by using by creating our own validator. We can say like validator. We can use a validator class, and we can validate the input here by saying validator whatever. But it's better to use a form request, because that way you can abstract these details from this method and you don't need to write them multiple places. But if you want to use just really quickly one-off, you can try to validate some rules somewhere. But remember, it's better to create a form, and then if that form is being used over and again somewhere else, you know, it's better to create a dedicated class. That way it's easy to manage and reusable. So we won't do this local validation. We'll create a class instead. So let's go back to terminal and create a class, make request. How about we call it mail form request is a good name, because it's a form in the end, and then it's mail form validation request. Mail form validation request sounds good. So we'll use that and come back to the Sublime Text and try to open that. Now this basically is a class that basically extends the base request class which we have just tried to demonstrate here. So it extends the class, and it gives us this opportunity to override these rules. If you open this class, for example, let's say this one. So if I go here, so you have request, I would say this one, yeah. So if you go here, you've got your not this one, I think it has requests, namespace app http requests, app http requests. Here is the request, and here is the class, and which actually extends the form request. So if you go here, the form request class has an array called, it has a method called rules, which is, so it's a design pattern that basically takes your rules and does the job of creating a validator for us. So there are a couple of things here, but anyway, we're not trying to dig deeper into Laravel architecture and trying to understand what's going on. But what I can tell you is that when you create a request, it basically extends the request, which essentially extends phone request, and well, we've got this rules method which we can actually override. So currently there are no rules applied, and we can override. So this basically determines if who is authorized to make this request. Well, in our case, we're trying to send a form which is basically open to everyone, so everyone can send. So we'll just say true. That way this request will be, it will proceed to validate against these set of rules. It won't really stop. So every form is valid. And what kind of check we want to do really? So we've got an email, we've got a subject, and we've got a message. And let's just say we need all three of them. So we'll say email. So basically it's an array key value, and it uses a pipe. So basically we can say email is required, and I want it to look like an email, which means Laravel knows what an email really is. It must have a host name, it must have a valid email address with the @ symbol. So email subject. Now subject is required, and we can say minimum. A subject can have minimum 5 characters, and maximum it can have I don't know, 150 characters. I don't know, just random. Now we want to make sure, we want to control this input so our email does not get excessively, some amazing number of characters, that the email services, we are using a third-party email services like Gmail, Yahoo, so they may have some limit. So we want to control this number. So minimum, I don't know, 10 characters. Why 10 characters? We can say 2 characters actually. I can just say hi. There's no minimum limit actually. Minimum is 0. Maximum, let's just say 10,000. 10,000 characters is a good number. Now, if any of these rules fail, they have certain messages that will be displayed to the user, and you can also override those messages by just writing in a method that will override the base class, the method in the base class. So we are extending the class, and we inherit everything that's in the base class or superclass. So I'm trying to find that class so we can have a look. Is it this one? It's not this class. Symphony request. Is it Symphony request? Symphony. It's definitely it's form request, and in the form request, see there's a if. It's going to take the rules, it's going to take the messages, and it's going to create the object for us dynamically. And if the validation fails, it's going to return the response with errors and pass in this object, validator object, and stuff like that. Sometimes you just dig inside these things and have a look. It's a great deal of work. So this is your messages for validator errors. If you don't override it, it's just going to use this field and the name of the field, which is email or whatever is the rule. Some standard messages will come out. We'll just leave it to standard for now, and you can always override them, but just copy and then just paste it here, and you can call it in your funny language whatever you want to say. Anyway, just save it. That's the job we want to do. That's good. Now since we have created a form request, we need to Laravel is smart enough to know that the form request has been created, and it's going to we need to tell it to use it. So all we have to do, instead of using the request, we can change it to mail form validation request, and we can leave the variable same. So it's going to dynamically validate the request for us. And so what should we do? Let's just say what should we say? Okay, let's just dump everything the way we did before. And oh, I'm using a free version, so it's complaining. But anyway, yeah, so hopefully we'll see this the whole information only if the information is filled out. So I'm just going to get rid of this information now at the moment. Okay, so Sublime Text has this funny business which I have to include it. Hopefully it won't complain now. It still complains. So what's the name? So it's full address. So I have to use app http hopefully now app http mail form validation request does not exist. And why it does not? Namespace app http requests are inside the requests, so we need to put that in as well. Just copy this, get rid of this, and go here and paste it, and hopefully now. Okay, so here if I try to send it, as you can see nothing is happening, but actually everything is working as expected. The only thing is we are not able to see the error messages because we haven't given the error messages a room to appear. We haven't given them a space or a place to be displayed. So actually we're trying to send this form, but it comes back to us because there's no information here. So let's fix that right now. And how to display an error? Well, we have to display on the very same page. So open up this page, which is basically new mail, send new mail, and somewhere here after the form we can create a new container. So our div ends here, so let's just create here and here let's create a row. I need to increase the size, otherwise you can't see. So let's just give it a bootstrap class, a mobile width. And so how do we display errors? Well, the errors are all placed in the session and in session variable. That's how we share the error variables between different pages. So we're going to access the session. If session has, we're going to access the session facade. A session by using session facade, you can access whatever is currently in the session global array. It's a super global, so you can access it throughout your application. If session has errors, then we want to display it. So div.alert, let's just say give it a bootstrap class. If you guys need a video on Bootstrap, just let me know. But I suppose everyone should know in today's world what's Bootstrap, because it's just so basic. And I'm gonna call a for each, and I'm gonna use the errors variable, which we have, and all the errors, basically a collection of errors, so that's how you use it. And I'm gonna call it as error, so just get rid of this key value. And I want to display a button basically, and the type of button is going to be a button, and class is going to be, let's just say, close. For some reason I seem to remember all this because I have used so much of Bootstrap. And I hope it works. If it doesn't work, I'll refer to the documentation. You don't need to remember it, just you can always you just need to know that it exists somewhere, so when you need it you can use it. And we're going to provide let's just say a cross symbol, so one can click and get rid of it. That's going to be the button. And also we want to display the error message. Let's just keep it strong. So it's going to loop through all the errors and it's going to display that. And after that, here we can say, let's just what should we do here? Let's end for each, and also let's end the div, and also so let's end the end for each here. Let's end div as well. Hopefully I didn't miss out on any div tags. So we have div tag here, so we've got, so it's going to be, each message is going to be inside a separate div, and each error is going to list down here. Yeah, that's fine. If there are errors, if there are any errors, I want you to create a new div, otherwise no div will be created. That's good. And here we close the div. And if there are any errors, I want you to loop over each one of them and display them as a button and strong. And then I want to, I think I should do it like this, and that's it. That should be good to go, I guess. The next thing I want to do is just indent it a little bit so it looks good like this. So I guess that's what we need. So let's test it out. If I don't just click here, I should see messages. So email field is required, and the subject is required, and the message field is required. Now what is happening here? Why do you see these brackets? Because I forgot that in Blade templating engine we don't need to put these brackets. It will parse. It will parse. Once we use @ symbol, it will just parse this as a normal for each block as a PHP, and then we should see better. This is better, but we need to give a break tag here so we can have them in separate lines, or we can just use this one. We can take this one here, and that way it'll create a different div tag for each error, and that looks better. Good. Now I should see 3 different errors, and I can close them and they go away. That's perfect. And let's test it out. I'm just gonna say here Eric, and it should say email field must be a valid email address. So let's just say here zebradesignstudios@gmail.com, and that looks like an email, although it hasn't verified whether this host name exists or not by pinging that host name. So essentially it's a valid email address, but again it can also be invalid email address due to many different reasons. For example, maybe the host name doesn't exist, and maybe the host is down currently, maybe the server is down currently, we are not getting 200 OK response. So by pinging an email address, you can quickly verify, or you can create an array of top hosts, top email hosts, for example Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, MailChimp, stuff like that. So, or you can have a list of spammed mail hosts, and that way you can filter out in a more effective way, because someone can send emails to unknown hosts or invalid hosts, and it can actually queue up so many emails in your mail server, which will essentially it's still doing the job, and it's trying to get a 200 response, and if it will just come back as a failed delivery, it won't. So it'll still generate new threads, and it'll just shut down your server. Someone can really attack. This is one of the ways they can attack your server, by giving it invalid information. But anyway, a very simple validation. This is a valid email address. There are no spaces here. If I enter a space here, it will start complaining. So once it's a valid email address, the error goes away. But again, it's not really valid. Subject, because it's a string, any string is fine. Message, hello, and that goes away. So we created this, that if everything goes fine, then I want you to dump the request. We're firing this method, and I want you to dump everything. And that's why we see this output, because we've got the email address validated, we've got validated as per Laravel validation, but of course I'm talking about advanced validation. Subject and some body. Now in the body we had if you reduce, for example, subject, if you reduce it to 1 character, it's going to start complaining. It has to be at least 5 characters, because we've set these rules. We set these rules, minimum is 5 characters. Maybe we should change it to like 2 characters anyway, because high can be 2 characters. Anyway, that's fine. Some people also use emojis as subjects, which won't be validated by Laravel right now, because I think it only validates strings or numbers and text. If you want to validate emoji, you have to create a different rule, and you can extend that class, and you can actually create something. So if I put here, I don't know how to put one emoji. If I put here, for example, these symbols I'm typing, some of these symbols, anyway, you get the idea. So in this video we managed to create a form request with some validation rules, and we had a little bit of play around with the error messages and how to display them properly in the form. I know you must have done them in one of my old apps, but I think I gave you one of the Blade templates pre-coded, so you didn't go through this stuff. We were focused on the backend side, but in this app we are actually constructing these templates as well, these views as well. So we are also having a look at other things like these errors and stuff like that. But anyway, so we managed to create some rules of a form request, and we managed to run checks on our form, and it appears we have better control over user input, and that can reduce the clogging on the server. By doing simple validation, we can really save a lot of unwanted server side waste, Anyway, have a play around on this and let me know if any issues. In the next video, we'll try to work on how to embed a rich text editor here so we can really decorate a nice HTML5 looking content. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to give a thumbs up. Have a nice one.